Hello everyone and welcome to another virtual pet review video. This time I'm going to be reviewing the Tamagotchi Smart, and I'll be going over the good, the bad and the other of this newly released virtual pet. In addition, I'm also going to be, of course, giving you my enjoyment and ease of use ratings out of 10, as I usually do for my other virtual pet reviews. So first of all, let's start with the good. So the Tamagotchi Smart has a touchscreen, and this is a great little feature that really and truly adds to the immersive nature of this virtual pet. It makes it feel more real, and it makes it feel more than just a really adorable little bit of pixels. So when the Tamagotchi is young, it will beep at you when it's time to go to bed for you to rub its head as it falls asleep. This is a nice touch and a nice change of the usual it beeps at you to turn the lights out. It just beeps at you so you can help it sleep. And it doesn't sleep as well if you ignore this beep and don't give it the head pats that it requires. And it's a really sweet little touch. In addition to this, in the morning, you can wake it up by giving it the same little rub across the head. And it's just a nice little feature. You can also rub its head at any time, like if it's sad, you can rub its head to cheer it up, or just if you want to give it a bit of a friendly rub. It's just a really sweet little feature, and it makes it feel a lot more real as a pet. More immersive and more than just the annoying little pixel that beeps at you. It makes you feel like you care about it a little bit more, and it adds that extra level of interactivity. Another positive is definitely the fact that it's USB rechargeable. This is the charging cable that it comes with, but it's not a proprietary connector at all. You can just buy these very easily and quite cheaply. In fact, it's the same charger as my Kindle uses, so I can use my Kindle. And because it's USB, it can be charged by your computer, your laptop, your power bank, the wall charger. It makes it easy to recharge rather than every time running out of batteries having to scamper for 3 AAA batteries. It just makes it a lot easier, and the battery life is honestly fine. The battery life goes for a few days, and honestly, when I'm using rechargeable AAA batteries, it lasts for about as long as the USB charge. So it's fairly handy, and as I said, it comes with a rather short cable here, and the Digimon Vital Bracelet comes with the exact same length in cable. You can kind of just get a longer one, and it's not a big deal. But this is nice that it's so small because you can kind of fold it up and put it in your pouch if you're carrying around your virtual pet in a little pouch. So it kind of makes it easier just to travel around with having such an easy to access charging cable. So that's a handy thing. Something else that I've noticed is that not only can you view the battery status in the settings, I also noticed that when I have let the battery run dry, the internal battery, or I guess the last bit of charge, actually keeps the time in the Tamagotchi. So when you do charge it again, you don't actually have to change the time. And every time I do, I check, and the time hasn't changed. The time is still accurate. So that's a nice little feature that they have, because I guess they don't allow it to run fully flat. Of course, if you left your Tamagotchi Smart uncharged for years, I would probably check the time and make sure the time hasn't changed at all or hasn't stayed the same as when the battery ran completely dry. But it is pretty handy that it has that functionality, especially because every time I change the batteries on an older Tamagotchi, I have to check the time, which makes sense because there's no batteries. So that's a nice plus of having it just being a rechargeable battery. And also, as I said, the battery life isn't too bad. Like, it's longer than the Vital Bracelet, which makes sense. There's no heart rate monitor, but it seems like it's just as long as it would be if it was just a battery operated Tamagotchi. Now, my other positive is something that I was actually a little bit worried about when the Tamagotchi Smart was released. So when it was, not released, announced, and before it was released. So the fact that it's worn on the wrist was actually originally a negative for me, because I already wear my Fitbit and my Digimon Vital Bracelet on my wrist throughout the day. So I didn't want to wear something else on my wrist. And also, it's a little bit, it doesn't look as bulky as the Vital Bracelet, but it's still bulky enough that I wouldn't want to wear this out in public like this. And I was really worried about that. Like, this is not something I want to wear all the time. But the good thing is that you don't actually have to wear it in the wrist app. It just pops straight out, just like that. So here's my other one. And it's just a matter of popping it out of the silicone case, and you don't have to keep it on your wrist. Now, it doesn't have a heart rate monitor like the Digimon Vital Bracelet does, so it doesn't have any need to be on your wrist. So you can just have these and never actually use them. So you can put those to the side and never use the wrist straps. And that is really, really nice, because I was, as I said, kind of worried when it was announced that I would have to wear it on my wrist at all times, but I don't, and that's a nice positive. Another nice positive is the fact that and this is something else I was worried about, it being too big, it's actually a lot smaller than the other colour Tamagotchis. It means that it's easy to walk around with, and if you do have it on your wrist, it's not like a giant thing on your wrist. Like, this is the Tamagotchi Meets, which was previously one of the last ones that were released in America. So yeah, it's nice not having that size on your wrist, but it is also smaller than it. It's more of the size of the Tamagotchi Connection, which was released around 2006-ish. So that's nice that it's not this huge bulky bit, and it would make sense that it's not, because it doesn't have the AAA batteries in there. So it's a nice size. And if you're wondering more about the size comparisons, I did do a video where I compared this Tamagotchi with the other releases that we've had, just so you get an idea about its size. But it's quite a nice size. It fits in your pocket, it fits in a pouch, it's not too bulky, and it fits on your desk and doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. So that's kind of a positive. Another positive that is in comparison with other Tamagotchi virtual pets is the animations are a lot smoother. With things like, even the On and the Meet suffered from this, but the animations were more like a slideshow of images, and it didn't seem very dynamic. It just seemed rather static as an animation. It just seemed like it was very basic, a few frames. The animations, however, on the Tamagotchi Smart are a lot smoother, and it feels more like an animation rather than a slideshow. And that's just nicer to watch, and again, it doesn't take you out when you're realizing, geez, that's a bit slow. It's nice that these animations make it feel more like a living thing rather than just it's just a slideshow. And of course, the color screen adds to that. Something else that I appreciate is that the smart cards, which add additional content, aren't actually required. You can go without having any of the Tamagotchi Smart cards. So compared with the Digimon Vital Bracelet, the content is all on the DIM. You can't actually run a Vital Bracelet without any DIMs, and that's why the Vital Bracelet itself ships with at least one DIM. The Tamagotchi Smart, however, unless you get one of the special versions like the Nizui collaboration or the 25th anniversary version, the regular standard pink or green ones don't actually ship with any smart cards, because they're not actually required and they're just sold as additional extras. This is like the Tamagotchi Ps and how they had the Deco Pierce, which just added additional content. So while they're nice and cool and it gives you extra stuff to do, you don't actually need any. So that's a plus, that you don't need to spend a lot of money. You just need this one Tamagotchi, and any other content you want is kind of seen as DLC that costs around $10. So that's pretty cool. Something else that I appreciate is that the games feel a lot more fun and a lot more rewarding than other Tamagotchis, other than, as I mentioned in every video, the Tamagotchi Nanos, which their games are very quick and kind of fun. So all the games on the Tamagotchi Smart are very, very quick to go through. They're only, I'd say less than a minute in time each, which is not that much compared to the Tamagotchi Connection, which some of those mini games can go for 5 minutes, and they're a boring 5 minutes as well, at least for me. And also, I felt like the games on the other Tamagotchis, like the Tamagotchi Connections, aren't very rewarding. So they're not fun and they're not rewarding, as in you play and you don't really get much in return. These ones are really quick, and it seems to boost the happiness of your Tamagotchi up quite a lot. So I really appreciate that. And this kind of ties into my next point, was that the other thing I don't like about these games is that one of the things that they do in the other Tamagotchis is they decrease your Tamagotchi's weight. Now, unless I'm missing something completely, the Tamagotchi Smart has actually gotten rid of the weight mechanic. And I really appreciate this because I always have overweight Tamagotchis. Because sometimes I don't have time to play all their 5-minute long games multiple times in a row to boost happiness. So I just feed them snacks to keep them happy. So I always have really overweight, sickly Tamagotchis. And the games that you play never really decrease the weight fast enough. So the fact that the Tamagotchi Smart has released, finally gotten rid of the weight mechanic is something I'm really fond of. Maybe others may disagree, but for me, this is a positive that they've gotten rid of that. However, it is a little bit weird that the Tamagotchi that also has a step counter got rid of the weight mechanic. And I have another point about that, but I'll get to it when I get to it. So, my last good point is that, and this is a big one for me, it is there are no connection-based unlocks. So the previous color screen Tamagotchi releases in Japan were the Meets, and you would need to connect your Meets to 2 or 3 other Tamagotchi devices in order to unlock all the areas that your Tamagotchi can go to. So this required you to either have multiple Tamagotchis of the same version or to have friends who also had the Tamagotchi, and you would unlock those special areas together. And it was always really annoying. It always kind of required you to buy multiple Tamagotchis. With this, there is connectivity between the Tamagotchi Smarts, but it's only they can be friends, which is at a very basic kind of unlock level. So I'm really appreciative they got rid of those connection-based unlocks. And all the unlocks are just based on these. And compare $100 with $10 to unlock some extra features. These are much better than having a full other Tamagotchi toy to play with. Now we're done with the good, let's move on to the bad. So this is something that it honestly surprised me when I unboxed it, but there's no off switch on this, at all. The Vital Bracelet has a little off switch here, and to turn it off, it's a switch, you switch it off. The Tamagotchi Smart doesn't have such feature. So there's not really a way to pause it or to set it down once you don't want to play with it or run it anymore. Your options for stopping playing with it are let the battery die or let the Tamagotchi die, which feels kind of weird. Maybe I just want to set it down for a few days and come back to it and have a Tamagotchi still there. I shouldn't have to wait for it to die or to, let the battery die. It just seems like a weird choice there, especially when the Vital Bracelet does have an off switch, and this one doesn't have the functionality to turn it off. It seems kind of weird, it's always on. My next point is something that I kind of alluded to earlier, and it's that the step counting doesn't, unless I'm missing something, doesn't do anything. So calling it a smartwatch seems a little bit of a stretch and a little bit of an exaggeration. It's just a Tamagotchi that has this silicone case that you can wear on your wrist. But there's no reason for it to be worn on your wrist. It's not a Fitbit. It doesn't have a heart rate monitor. It has a step counter, but you can have the step counter just in your pocket. So calling it the Tamagotchi Smart feels kind of weird because it doesn't actually have any what I would call smartwatch features. It just has a pedometer, and other than that, is just the exact same as every other Tamagotchi in terms of the functionality. You care for it, you can take it out, you can buy it clothes and whatever. It doesn't really seem like a smartwatch. The step counter doesn't do anything, which is kind of disappointing, especially because if we did have weight, it would be pretty handy and pretty cool just to see the step counter tick down the weight. I feel like that'd be a great and easy functionality. I feel like it's kind of surprising that they didn't add that as some functionality there. But in any case, the step count is pretty cool though, but it is weird that it doesn't really do anything. And I feel like calling it a Tamagotchi Smart, again, seems a bit of a stretch. And yeah, as mentioned previously, you got rid of weight, but you added the step counter. Why? Then another feature or functionality that I don't really like much is the fact that there's sliding and pressing the touchscreen, which doesn't feel as intuitive as I would like. It feels like more different than just sliding like you would on your phone or any other touchscreen device. you actually have to slide through one of the 4 quadrants on the screen, and you have to slide it at the exact same time that they want you to slide. So it's a little bit unnatural sometimes, and some of that functionality is a little bit weird. Like, you might want to scroll, but you end up clicking on something instead. It just doesn't feel perfect. It feels just a little bit off. But maybe they're just taking their time learning about touchscreens on the Tamagotchi devices, and it's the first time that they did that. Speaking of which, so we have the usual button design here that we have in all Tamagotchis, and these 2 aren't actually buttons. Only the middle one is a button. So these 2 are just black dots, and that just feels really, really weird to have just fake buttons, but I guess they don't want to go away from the design of a Tamagotchi too much by removing those extra 2 buttons. But it feels weird. Like, it feels really, really weird. In any case, that's just, they're trying to stick with the design. I can't fault them too much on that. And then my last negative point is the fact that the 1996 card being lottery only is a little bit annoying. And I mean, at least at the time of recording this, the 1996 card is lottery only. If they do a retail release of it later, obviously at this point no longer stands. But at this point in time, that special smart card is lottery only, which is kind of a shame because there's got some cute nostalgic things, and I really would hope that we get a retail release for that. But I guess I wouldn't be too surprised if not. And then, of course, now we've done with the good, the bad, let's move on to the other. So I'm kind of, and this is why there's an other here for a very big reason, because it's not a negative or a positive, it's just a thing. So I'm kind of surprised by the exclusion of having an app. On one hand, it'd be pretty cool, and it'd be another way to interact with your pet, and maybe transfer your character to your phone to have more content and more interaction with that pet, or maybe even exclusive items, like, for example, the Tamagotchi Connection had Tamatown, which was a website, and you enter your password, you go into the website, and you can bring back items from the website, and that was pretty cool. So it would be kind of cool to have that with the Tamagotchi Smart. Or maybe it would tally your step count, and you could compare it with your online friends, and that'd be pretty cool, something like we have on the Fitbit. But we don't have that. There is no app, and looking at the options, there's no possibility for there to ever be an app. So that's a little bit of a shame. There's no app functionality here. It's just this, the Tamacard, which is still, I still like the Tamasmart card as an idea, same as the DIM card, but it is kind of weird that we don't get an app there. However, on the other hand, and this is why it's not a negative that we get an app, is that these apps don't last forever. So eventually the servers get shut down and they don't get supported anymore. And this means that once an app dies, there's a certain functionality that is no longer available on that Tamagotchi. It's just kind of there. It's the same with the Tamatown option on any of the Tamagotchi connections, and then most recently the Japanese Tamagotchi Meets are having their online app shut down. So you can no longer mate with people on the app, which is kind of a bummer because that was one of my favourite functionality of the Tamagotchi Meets, was the fact that you could marry other Tamagotchi characters and you could watch how their genetics cross over, and that was pretty cool. But that app is being shut down, and that's really sad. So once that app is shut down, you're missing a significant portion of content when you go to play with that Tamagotchi. So instead of missing out on that, you are able to really interact with this Tamagotchi the way it is for years and years and years after they get discontinued and not sold anymore. However, there is a concern with the Tamagotchi Smart cards acting as the majority of the extra additional content, and that's the fact that compared with other things that are similar, like the Digimon Crossloaders Code Crowns or the Tamagotchi P's Deco Pierces, these kind of got very expensive to buy secondhand once they were discontinued. And I guess the same worry kind of exists for the Tamagotchi Smart. However, from release, they are much easier to acquire, at least for international customers such as myself, than the Deco Pierce or the Code Crowns. So there's kind of a few points there. My last other point, as in the good, the bad, and the other, is that the talking functionality that you have on the device with this little microphone, which you can just sort of see it there. There's a little microphone, and you can talk to it. But it's fairly gimmicky, and it's not so much it's responding to your voice as it is responding to sounds. And you also have to get really close. You have to get this close to the Tamagotchi to talk to it. You can't do it like this. You have to like put your mouth basically right on the microphone, which is a bit weird. And it also responds to tapping as well as it does to talking. So it just feels kind of gimmicky, but again, not really a negative, definitely not a positive. It's just kind of something I've noticed when I was running this little Tamagotchi right here. So now we're done with the good, the bad, and the other. Let's go over my overall rating as I usually do for my virtual pet reviews. So first up, for enjoyment, I'm giving it a 9 out of 10. It's fun, but it doesn't really suit my lifestyle as well as the Digimon Vital Bracelet does. But it's definitely a virtual pet that needs care, while the Vital Bracelet doesn't really need care. You can kind of just wear it on your wrist. It's also probably the most fun I've had with a coloured Tamagotchi since I first played with the Tamagotchi Meets, because I really liked the fact that you could mix your genetics on that, and I ran Meets for months and months, which is much longer than I usually run a Tamagotchi for, or a particular version of a Tamagotchi. So I definitely can see a lot of love and a lot of playtime coming out of these. I've had it for a few months now, since I got the 1996 Friends version, which released in August, and I really do enjoy running it. It's got a lot more going for it, especially now with the smart cards being released, than a typical Tamagotchi does, and I'm enjoying that more. But it doesn't really suit my lifestyle, because if I get really busy, like with work or just with any other commitment, I just find that I don't pay attention to it and I end up getting bad care characters, which is the same for all Tamagotchis. On the other hand, with the Vital Bracelet, I can just kind of leave it on my wrist and it'll kind of look after itself, which is handy. But I do enjoy the Tamagotchi Smart, and if you like Tamagotchis, you will absolutely adore the Tamagotchi Smart because it has so much going for it. Just for me, it doesn't really suit me because I get busy and I like doing other things, and sometimes I'll just get a few care mistakes, and it's nice when something doesn't punish me for the care mistakes, but this one does as much as every other Tamagotchi, basically. So if you like Tamagotchis, I definitely recommend the Tamagotchi Smart. Next up, for ease of use, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. It requires moderate amounts of care and checking throughout the day, but it isn't as impossibly hard as other virtual pets, such as the Ocean, which I've mentioned. The Tamagotchi Ocean is just far too hard and needs you to be constantly looking at it throughout the day, like constantly. This one is a more like moderate, reasonable level of care, but not too much of a challenge. So it doesn't offer too much of a challenge, but it still requires you to care about it and look after it, which is fine. I like that. I don't mind that. But again, if I get busy at work, it's kind of hard to take care of. There is a daycare functionality, as a lot of the Tamagotchis have that functionality, but if I sometimes just like leaving it on and just dealing with it. But in any case, that's my overall sort of review for the Tamagotchi Smart. Did I convince you to get one? Have you already got one? What are your thoughts on the Tamagotchi Smart? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next video. Bye!